Three, two.
All right. Welcome back to We the People, the weekly podcast every Thursday at 6 p.m. with your host, John Allen. The views expressed by the host and the callers of this show are not necessarily the view of WLTH management, owners, advisors, and sponsors. Tonight we have guest Susan Peters, and we're going to have her come back on and talk a little bit. And I have a question for Ms. Peters. Uh, Ms. Peters, it'd be interesting for me to know in your experience with having living abroad and then being back here and then being an author and obviously being a people person. What do you think? What's your opinion of our political atmosphere in this country right now today in America?
Oh my goodness. Uh, I feel like we have pedaled backwards in time. I think in many ways the political atmosphere that kind of caused me and many other African Americans to migrate to Africa, to because there's been people who've gone to Tanzania, to Ghana, to West
Canada.
Africa, right. People been, I mean, we don't talk about it as much um, because we don't share the history, which is why I wrote Sweet Liberia. But I think people have been trying to find a better way. And I don't see a substantive difference now uh, than what I experienced in 1978, 79. I think we I'm depressed a little bit that at this stage in my life, we're still talking about Black people having equal rights. I think we were fooled, or we fooled ourselves when we had a Black president because we really didn't understand the depth of the racism that is directed toward us. We thought, and I credit Donald Trump with, you know, helping us to face it because I think we were trying to run away from the truth.
And he kind of
So
let it out.
he let the cat out the bag, and I've always said that it is easier to deal with an enemy when you can see it,
Right.
as opposed to it coming around behind your back and you sucking on the lollipop.
We got a caller, Miss Peterson. We're gonna take a caller, and our engineer gonna patch him in. Hello, caller. Thank you. You're on WLTH and you're on We the People streaming podcast. What's your name?
Benjamin.
Benjamin. Okay, Mr. Benjamin. You have a comment or question for our guest?
I don't have a comment or a question. After yes, I'm trying to call in and see what's going on.
Oh,
Want me to
no. You try to call us. Well, Benjamin, what's happening here? We have a award-winning author Susan Peters on the show tonight, and she's
Okay.
wrote several books. And my favorite line of books is the detective novels, the mystery books. But she also wrote a book very interesting called Sweet Liberia: Lessons from the Cold Pot. And in that book, Miss Peters talks about her experience of living in Liberia, Africa for 11 years. And so we were just talking about that, and we segued into not only just the politics of it, the economy in Africa, and then we're segueing over into some things here in comparison. And so that's what's going on.
Oh, okay. That sounds extremely interesting. So what were we segueing into?
Into your phone call when you interrupted, bro. We were segueing into your phone call. But what we're going to do, we're going to get you off the line, ask you to listen now and listen every week. And we, you know what? And we may even ask you to call back because I'm going to put out, you just gave me an idea. You called in and asked what's going on. I'm going to ask on my Facebook page what's going on with other people they think is important. Then we're going to have them call in the show and talk about what's going on in reverse. How about that? And the public host the show one evening. So I think that'll be fun. Thank you, brother, for calling in. And I look forward from hearing you again. We're going to go back to Miss Peters. Thanks a lot, Ben. Go ahead, Miss Peters.
Yes, and so Benjamin is listening, so that's really exciting. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, so that's where we were. I think we have gone around in a circle,
Okay.
And I think people should consider that America is a place, and there are lots of other places in the world that people can go and live and do well.
That's good. That's important. And this one thing that I like to emphasize here. One of the underlying themes of We the People is that you have to take action. I noticed you said you listen to what people say, but you watch what they do. The things that concern us, whether they good or bad, if we want to have less of the bad, more of the good, whatever, we have to be engaged and we have to take action. And sometimes we have to accept the fact that it may be boring, and sometimes that unknown oppression or unknown unfairness is comfortable, or we believe it to be comfortable because we haven't tasted anything else. So we have to be aware of that too. With that being said, I really, really enjoyed you being on the show tonight. And if there's any thoughts you want to leave our guests with, what would they be?
Well, I think I was beginning to hit upon the fact that we should look at people in terms of what we have in common as opposed to what our differences are. And I'd like for Black people to kind of open our minds and hearts to the fact that the world is a very big place. I have friends who have relocated to Hawaii. I know people who live in Ghana. I know people in Liberia. The world is a big place. And so we can go anywhere we want to go if we are just committed to being successful.
Okay. With that being said, I think that's some wisdom speaking there. So with that being said, we had Miss Peters. And you guys, I think Benjamin probably called because he wanted a free book. I hit that he liked free stuff. So Benjamin, my phone number is 219-716-0700. And you call me later and I'll make sure you get a free book, brother, so you can find out what's going on. I like that. So with that being said, we had Miss Peters tonight, and I thank you for calling in and being our guest. And we look forward to probably having you on the show again, maybe a panel on another subject that I'm going to probably share with you via email. And thanks for being a guest on We the People.
Thank you for having me. It was a great time.
All right, thank you. So there you have it, folks. We had Susan Peters, author. We had Susan Peters. I'm laughing at Ben, excuse me. We had Susan Peters, author of Sweet Liberia, Lessons from the Cold Pot. She wrote The Chef's Choice by Susan Peters. Broken Dolls, also by a mystery novel with Joy Summers, is a character. She created a detective character, woman detective. Slay the Dragon, also a featured book containing the character Joy Summers. And we have The Iron Collar, also by Miss Peters. Support her works. I ask you to support her works. And if you know of any other authors that have great books, bring them to my attention. I mention them on the show and support their works too. We all need to read more. But I'm going to tell you guys about a book that I really like a lot. That's one of my favorites. And it's a collection of writings by several people. And in one of the writings, we have Frederick Douglass, one of his classic writings in there. And we have what is purported to be a oratory from Sojourner Truth in the book. And it's called The Constitution and Other Writings. And the Constitution is in the book. It's also speeches from John F. Kennedy and different presidents, whether it's Theodore Roosevelt or whatever. But the reason why I like this book so much is that not only does it contain the Constitution in it, which I argue is the greatest document ever penned by mankind. Now pay attention to that, penned by mankind, not necessarily a book beyond mankind. And in that, the principles, although we were a certain segment of our community was sold out in the negotiation to ratify the Constitution, and that's another story. I think I talked about that story once, but nevertheless, today, the tenets of the Constitution, particularly the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, is very important, and I believe every citizen should learn those. And we the people are eventually going to craft some type of course for you guys to learn the fundamentals of your civics and the first 10 amendments of the U.S. Constitution. That's very important if you're going to be engaged, because I notice sometimes we even violate our constitutional rights among each other, just in our social discourse. And we don't respect one another's privacy rights. We don't understand people have freedom of speech. And I don't mean just opinion. And we also don't understand that we have to give people due process. And sometimes we get these jobs where we have a little authority and we trample all over one another's due process. And we need to stop doing that internally first before we go outside ourselves and ask and argue for that. So, with that being said, this is your host, John Allen, for We the People. And I enjoyed you guys tonight. Those of you who streamed on Facebook and got disconnected, I'm sorry about that, the technical difficulties. And as we go along, we plan for it to get better. My recommended listening and reading for you guys is I'm going to post or bring up a couple other, and I may even try to have as a guest, a couple other streamers that have some programs that can bring you to speed real quick on some of those things I touched upon. With that being said, this is We the People with John Allen. You guys have a great night.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't
I'll see
tell
you guys
us.
next Thursday at
We
6
the people
o'clock.
are the driver. The government is the car.